Pressure is mounting on the Germans. The Defence Minister, Boris Pistorius, is on his way to Ukraine shortly, but there's a danger that all of this fury around the Challenger, the Leopard 2 tanks makes Germany's position look as if they're just being difficult, whereas in fact the truth is far from that. The reason that Germany finds itself in this position is largely linked to history. At the end of the Second World War, the victorious Allies dismembered the German military to make sure that they could never conduct another war after two devastating world wars. The trouble is, after that happened, literally very shortly afterwards, the Cold War descended. And during the Cold War, Germany found itself on the front line of that. So the Allies relented and allowed Germany to start to build up some military capability. But it was quite specifically had to be defensive only. And that military couldn't get involved in internal domestic things. It couldn't end up collecting intelligence on German nationals. And most importantly, it couldn't ever have nuclear weapons. And all of that was enshrined in a constitution which exists to this day. The German people, for the legacy of those two world wars, have left a really difficult, dark stain on their history. As a result, when there were recent polls conducted that showed that the population of Germany was very supportive of the German position of providing defensive support to Ukraine, but actually was very, very sceptical about taking that to the offence, particularly of the risks of escalation. And that view was almost certainly made worse by recent rhetoric from Russia that has been talking about the devastating consequences of the arrival of Western tanks. And that's also for a couple of reasons, almost certainly because they believe that those tanks will not only be decisive in the battle, but will actually push Russian back. If we move on to the other news today, which was the Russian Defence Minister Sergei Shoigu, shown here, announced there was going to be another expansion of the Russian military, up to a 3-year plan going up to 1.5 million soldiers, largely in response to the potential NATO threat, allegedly. They're looking at putting another army group up in the north here, up in Karelia, on the Finland border, probably because Finland's looking to join NATO and therefore in response to that threat. But most importantly, Putin is also looking to mobilise his own national defence industry. He's been doing a whole raft of meetings with national defence leaders, all part of a long-term strategy to put the country on a war footing. The challenge here is, what's the West's response to this? Largely to date, we've been using what's available to go to Ukraine rather than what's required. Raiding the war chests of the Western nations has worked quite well for the last year. But something more robust and something more proactive would appear to be required if somebody's going to meet the requirements of Putin's new long-term military strategy.